Proceedings of Wednesday, 8 July 2020 is hereby approved. Birthday announcement. The 12th of July was the birthday of Senator Francis Fadaunsi, who is not around. On behalf of the Senate, I wish our distinguished colleague and brother a very happy birthday, long life, prosperity, and many more years of service to our fatherland. Petitions. Petitions. Leader of the Senate. Point of order, Senator Ibrahim Yahya Olorogbe.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, my name is Ibrahim Yahya Olorogbe. I come under Order 43, past explanation, Mr. President. If I have your permission, do I read it?
You may read, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Our Order 43 states, by the indulgence of the Senate and the leave of the President of the Senate, a senator may make a personal explanation, although there have been no question before the Senate. But no controversial matter may be brought forward, nor may debate arise upon the explanation. The terms of the proposed statement shall be submitted in detail to the President of the Senate when it's leave to make it his sought. Mr. President, my personal explanation is on the status of COVID-19 response in Nigeria, particularly the midterm review of the presidential task force set up by Mr. President and where we are. That's what, if I have your permission, Mr. President.
You may go ahead, but be brief, please.
Very brief. Mr. President, we may all recall that the COVID-19 pandemic came to Nigeria on February 27th. But the President of the Federal Republic set up on March 9 a presidential task force under the leadership of his SDF with some relevant ministers and a national coordinator who is a technical expert. Last week, Thursday, Friday, the President's task force had a midterm review after 4 months of implementation, with 3 months remaining in their order. We had the privilege as National Assembly to participate in the joint review between the executive, the legislators, and all other stakeholders. Mr. President, everybody in the world is aware of the pandemic, but particularly, we have to be commending Mr. President of Nigeria for setting up promptly that task force. And we need to commend the task force for the activities done so far. In the review, we were able to look at the 10 pillars of the response in Nigeria. Yes, we still do have some challenges, but we've been able to make substantial progress, including expanding our ability to test. And from that review, we agreed that every local government in Nigeria will now have a collection center to be able to collect samples, because without us increasing testing, we'll not be able to identify, and probably either we say we observe or we treat those that are requiring treatment. The other thing that has been coming up is that there are new evidences that shows the epidemiology of the disease, particularly the fact that the disease is transmissible now through the air, in which case it is compulsory and important for everybody to wear a face mask anywhere once you are outside. Because you have the potential, if you have it and you don't have symptoms, to transmit to others, or you have the potential to be infected by others if you don't wear a face mask. The other critical important one, Mr. President, and that will be the last one among many, is the fact that we recognize that the risk communication to Nigeria has not been effective. Many Nigerians still believe this disease is a disease of affluence or the disease of the rich. Whereas, yes, the deaths that we do, which are unfortunately we have as a result of COVID-19, affect every strata. It doesn't discriminate whether you are rich or you are poor. The only possible things that which we agree is that it is only the announcement of those that are who have positions that are announced. There are several other people that died who don't have, whose deaths are not announced. As such, we all have to take care. particularly for those of us Nigerians that are above 60, those that have underlying conditions such as cardiovascular diseases, diabetes, or they have anything that suppresses their immunity. This set of people should take extra care by staying indoors as much as possible or not interacting where they can be affected. So, Mr. President, the summary is that we are making progress and we should continue to make, and Nigerians will have to take responsibility for themselves and for others. May God continue to protect us. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Because you have come under Order 43, there is no provision for any contribution by anyone. But let me ask you this. I've read somewhere, probably in the social media, not the mainstream, that the virus, coronavirus, is likely to be airborne. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, it is correct. That is what I also mentioned. That's why I said it is transmitted airborne now. Yes, it is correct.
Okay, I think, okay. So if it is airborne, then the use of face mask is inevitable. Everybody has to use face mask. And I think this is something that we need to ensure that by all means becomes part of our lives in this country, because now you don't need to get close to someone who is infected. Airborne means you may be alone, probably somebody breathed out and left the place, and you could just unluckily walk in there and someone takes it. So this places a lot of necessity for us to ensure that our citizens use face masks. Maybe going forward, we need to find out how we are going to achieve that to support the great arm of government. Thank you. Senator Amos Bulus.
Mr. President, respected colleagues, I come under Order 43 with your permission, sir, may I read you? By the indulgence of the Senate and the leave of the President of the Senate, the Senator may make a personal explanation, although there may be no question before the Senate, but no controversial matter may be brought forward, nor any debate to arise out of the explanation. The terms of the proposed, it has to do with the federal route, the old route that is linking Gombe at Yola. With the kind permission, sir, I don't explain if I'm permitted, sir.
You may go ahead, but please be brief.
The city is situated along Gombe-Yola Road. There is this existing old route that has been there for a very long time. We have a new route now. Of recent, some people are coming with some papers. They say they obtained those papers from the Federal Ministry of Works, that they are buying up all those old bridges, and they were using dynamite to demolish some of these bridges. Bridges that are in the hearts of the community, that we are making judicious use of those bridges. I just feel that permitting some people or selling out those bridges to some people to come and demolish, I feel is anti-people and is not really good for us. It's on that note, because we have bridges right in the heart of my community, my village where I come from. Some people have come with papers right now as I speak, that they want, the Federal Minister of Work has sold those bridges to them, and they want to demolish those bridges because they're looking for iron rods. I just feel that that is not really good, and since we don't have access to where we can confirm whether actually those papers that people are parading are really true, genuine or not, I just feel that this is the right place for me to come and appeal to these humble chambers that will look into this issue. I think it's anti-people if we allow people to demolish these bridges because we are making good use of it, despite the fact that there is a new road. Today, if we have problem with the new road, people make good use of those bridges, and they are right inside the city where we reside. I'm appealing to these hollow chambers to to look into this case and, if possible, talk to the Federal Ministry of Work if really the papers those people are parading is true, to look into this case. That is what I have. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you very much, distinguished. Point of order, Senator Uche Kunefe.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, my name is Senator Uche Lilian Ekunifiyom. Mr. President, I come from Anambra State. I represent Anambra Central. Mr. President, my point of order is order 43, personal explanation. By the indulgence of the Senate and the leave of the President of the Senate, a senator may make a personal explanation, although there be no question before the Senate, but no controversial matter may be brought forward, nor may debate arise upon the explanation. The terms of the proposed statement shall be submitted in detail to the President of the Senate when his leave to make it is sought. Mr. President, I called attention to my point of order this morning. Mr. President.
Distinguished, you are coming under 43, right? Okay, I will advise that you try to be brief. All right, thank you. Go ahead.
I got to Otukpo Junction, between Otukpo and the Enugu State. I was caught up in that particular traffic for almost 6 hours. It took me 14 hours to get to Anambra State. Mr. President, my personal explanation this morning is for the Senate to call the attention of Federal Ministry of Works through FEMA to address some of these very terrible bad roads we have today in the country. With the ease of movement after this COVID-19 holiday, the traffic on the road will be very much. Therefore, the urgent need for these roads to be rehabilitated is very important. Some of the roads under consideration, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, let me crave your indulgence to just mention some of these few roads. Okene-Ekiti Highway Road, Lokoja-Jokuta Highway, Aba-Port Harcourt Highway, Ikotu-Ebene Aba Highway, Kogi-Enugu Highway, Enugu-Onitsha Highway, Enugu-Umu-Ahia, Abuja-Kaduna Highway, Ikotu-Ebene Calabar, and so many others, Lagos-Ibadan Highway. Mr. President, kidnappers and armed robbers have turned some of these very bad spots as catchment area, where they kidnap their victims, where they rob the road users, and where if they also commit some of the heinous crime, including killing of travelers. Therefore, Mr. President, may I seek your permission to call on FEMA and Federal Ministry of Works to immediately go into action to put these roads in order, to avert some of these dangerous accidents and killings on our highway. Mr. President, I so submit. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Point of order, Senator Binos Yarododa.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, my name is Binos Yaro, Adama South. I ride under Order 42, and with a kind permission, Mr. President, I would like to read. The matter for discussion shall, if possible, be referred to the President of the Senate before commencement of the day's sitting, and the President of the Senate shall refuse to allow the claim unless he is satisfied that the matter is definite and urgent. Mr. President, Saturday, 11 July was the African Anti-Corruption Day, and it is the fourth in the series. I would like the Senate to commemorate this event, and I would like, with a kind permission, to bring a motion to that effect on the next legislative day. I so submit, Mr. President.
Sorry, you came under personal explanation, right? 42. Okay, I will put the question now. Because you have come under Order 42, that you are seeking to present a motion on the next legislative day, I will need to put the question so that you need at least 1/5 of senators present to enable you to do that. You have my endorsement, of course. Those in favor? No. But he needs at least 150 senators present, in addition to my endorsement. Those in favor of the motion of our brother that he is allowed to present his motion in the next legislative, they say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it. Senator, you present your motion tomorrow. Point of order, Senator Akinye.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, I come under Order 41, 1 and 3. Mr. President, as usual, I'm presenting petitions not laid but referred to the Committee on Ethics from the Office of the President of the Senate. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the Senate Committee on Ethics, Privileges and Public Petition, in line with Order 41, 1 and 3, which is to present to the Senate some petition yet to be laid from the Office of the President of the Senate. In order to officially place the petition in the public domain through the floor of the Senate and for the votes and proceeding to capture the approval for referral. Mr. President, please find below the summary of the petition received from the Office of the Senate President for ease of reference. Number 1, Blessing Adamna Njoku, against Director of Pension Transitional Arrangement Directorate. A passionate appeal for your prompt intervention to reinstate me back to my office and for payment of salary arrears and other monetary benefits owed by Pension Transitional Arrangement Directorate. Number 2, 6C Obikwelu, Esquire, of Shidibieze Chambers, on behalf of Mrs. Stella Ndidimaka Ekwereku, against the Inspector General of Police. Petition from CC Obikwelu, Esquire, on behalf of unlawful arrest, intimidation of a toddler, Master Samuel Shidera Nwekwelu Obunaku, and Mrs. Stella Ndidimaka Ekwereku by Ms. Njika Ndukwe, Mr. Charles Nwabulo, Mr. Nonso Okechukwu, and men of IRT unit, Nigeria Police Force Abuja. Number 3, Mr. Isa AA and 2 others against Minister of Humanitarian Affairs. Petition from Mr. Isa AA and 2 others seeking urgent intervention to reversing wrongful disengagement of volunteers from Empower Social Intervention Scheme. Number 4, Anafa George Will and Comrade John Ihua on behalf of Rivers State Civil Society Organization against Inspector General of Police. Petition from Anafa George Will and Comrade John Ihua on extrajudicial killing and unprofessional conduct of police officers, anti-kidnapping unit of Rivers State Police Command. Number 4, Mr. President. Number 5, Liban Abdullahi and 2 others of Messrs. Ultimate Chambers, Omar and Co. on behalf of Corporal Lawal Munachi, 04NA/55/2233. Petition from the Liman Abdullahi and 2 others on threat and degrading inhuman treatment of Corporal Lawal Munachi by Lieutenant Colonel Mohammed Ibrahim, the then acting Colonel 244, Aru ECC Battalion, Shaki, Oyo State. Number 6, EC Igwekolo Esquire of EC Okwekolo and Co. against Inspector General of Police. Petition from EC Igwe Okolo Esquire on gross violation of human rights and the refusal of the Inspector General of Police to obey the judgment of the Federal High Court. And finally, Mr. President, Fowowe David Adeoba against the Executive Vice Chairman and the Managing Director of Engineering Material Development Institute. A passionate appeal from Fowowe David Adeoba for full implementation of court orders of judgment on promotion and corrupt practices and real passionate appeal for intervention over my ordeal or my promotion in the hands of Dr. Olushile Olugbenga Samuel, Managing Director CEO of Engineering Material Development Institute, Akure, Ondo State. Mr. President, distinguished senators of the Federal Republic, to the best of my knowledge, none of the above petition is seeking judicial remedy, Mr. President. And I therefore move that to seek the indulgence of the Senate to lay the above petition before the Senate for official referral to the committee for further legislative action. I so move, Mr. President.
Is any of them seeking any judicial remedy?
Judicial remedy, Mr. President. No.
You may lay the petitions, please. Distinguished colleagues, I would advise that we observe the social distancing, please. Thank you. The petitions are referred to the Senate Committee on Ethics, Privileges, and Public Petitions to report back within 4 weeks. Senator Patrick Abomoro.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Senator Abamoro, representing the very good people of the Benue South Senatorial District. Mr. President, I want to come under Order 42.1.2 on matter of urgent public importance. If the Senate President approves, I will read.
Did you say Order 42? Okay.
Order 42. The matter for discussion shall be, if possible, referred to the President of the Senate before commencement of the day's sitting, and the President of the Senate shall refuse to allow the claim unless he is satisfied that the matter is definite and urgent. If the claim is allowed by the President of the Senate and the leave of the Senate is given by at least 1/5 of all the senators, the matter shall stand over to the next legislative day. Mr. President, I have observed in recent times, especially from the platform of the social media, that Nigerians are complaining of the excessive and sometimes illicit charges on their accounts by commercial banks. It is on this note, Mr. President, on these lamentations, that I seek to bring, by way of motion, the attention of the Senate to these illicit and sometimes excessive charges of Nigerians by commercial banks. I so submit, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. I will have to put the question now. Those in favor of his motion that will allow him to present the motion on the next legislative day, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. You present your motion the next legislative day, which is tomorrow. Point of order, Senator Bima.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, my highly respected colleagues. My name is Bima Muhammad Enagi. I'm the Senator representing Niger South from Niger State. I would like to come under Rule 43. And if you permit me, I would like to read.
You may read.
A senator may make a personal explanation, although there have been no question before the Senate. But no controversial matter may be brought forward, nor may debate arise upon the explanation. The terms of the proposed statement shall be submitted in detail to the President of the Senate when his leave to make it is sought. My personal explanation is about heavy and serious rainstorm that happened in 3 local government areas of my senatorial district. So if I have your permission, I would like to go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
There's a heavy destructive rainstorm that occurred in 3 local government areas of my senatorial district.
Please try to be brief.
including houses, schools, farmlands, and other economic activities worth millions of naira were destroyed, with many people injured and 2 fatalities. The victims are currently dislocated and dispersed to different villages and communities, living in deplorable conditions after being rendered homeless and traumatized. At this crucial time of COVID-19 pandemic, where every citizen is advised to stay at home for safety, displaced victims without a home or roof over their heads are at greater risk of contracting infectious diseases and putting the entire family members in danger. The members of these communities are predominantly farmers, and with the rainy season at its peak, their farming activities are seriously affected. Hence, their livelihoods will be further disrupted and exposing them to various other sicknesses, including COVID-19 and hunger. Accordingly, I would like to call on the Senate to mandate the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, and National Emergency Management Agency, that is NEMA, to immediately intervene through the provision of relief and rehabilitation materials to the victims in the affected communities. I would also want the Senate to mandate the Universal Basic Education Commission, UBEC, to undertake reconstruction and rehabilitation of the affected schools. I so submit. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Point of order.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am Senator Chukwuka Otaze. I represent the good people of Enugu North Senatorial District of Enugu State. Mr. President, I want to come under personal explanation under Order 43. Mr. President, I take it as right that all the members of the Senate here know what personal explanation is all about.
Please read the something, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Personal explanation. By the indulgence of the Senate and the leave of the President of the Senate, a Senate may make a personal explanation, although there be no question before the Senate. But no controversial matter may be brought forward, nor may debate arise upon the explanation. The terms of the proposed statement shall be submitted in detail to the President of the Senate when he is leave to make its sought. Mr. President.
Okay, what is it? Tell us, but be very brief, please.
Mr. President, recently, newspapers and social media has carried about issues surrounding the activities of our illustrious son, Mr. Innocent Chukwuma, the brain behind Innocent Vehicle Manufacturing Company Limited, IVM, situated in Nnewi, about the products he makes in this country. And as part of my responsibility as a senator, that I have 3 functions: representation, lawmaking, and oversight. Mr. President, as in terms of representation, I want to talk about this indigenous businessman that has given Nigeria image and what is written in the newspapers about him. That's what I want to say, Mr. President.
Please be brief about it.
I want to say, Mr. President, to refresh your memory, that Innocent Vehicle Manufacturing Company Limited, shortened as IVM, is a Nigerian automobile and bus manufacturing company. It was founded by Innocent Chukwuma Nwala and runs a plant in Nnewi in the state of Anambra. Innocent Vehicle Manufacturing Company is nicknamed Pride of African Road. 70% of the car parts are produced locally, while the rest is sourced from Japan, China, and Germany. Among IBM's vehicle models are the 5-seaters, Fox, and the Omo 2-liter engine, as well as minibus Uzo. Innocent vehicles are being used in some West African countries like Mali, Sierra Leone, and Ghana. Brand Ambassador Mercy Eke, the first female winner of Big Brother Africa show, is currently the brand ambassador of Innocent. Mr. President, having said this briefly, it has come to knowledge that some people, when the Senate Committee on Land Transport were discussing how they will encourage the National Assembly to purchase products from this company, that it arose that somebody stood up and said no, and said a lot of unprintable things about Innocent because of local politics. Mr. President, I want to say that this company should be respected and not maligned, even by people from these chambers. Mr. President, it is not allowed. It's not what should be. We should encourage our people who are making efforts to give image to Nigeria. And Innocent, if there's any one person that is helping to make sure that the image of Nigeria is respected, it is Mr. Innocent Chukuma. He should be respected and not maligned. And it is not something that it should be allowed that by this country. If people are playing politics in their area, they should reflect themselves to politics in their area.
Distinguish.
Mr. President, I am done. Thank you so much.
You have trended into controversy, actually. Yes. Distinguished colleagues, Senator Danjumala. It's okay. Leader of the Senate. What order? Senator Ifanyuba. Senator Ifanyuba. Sorry, which order? But you need to tell me what it is. I need to know what it is.
Oh, come.
Senator Ifanyuba, distinguished. Just listen, please. You need to tell me what you want to speak about. That's if you read the order. So what, I can now give you the privilege to tell me what it is. No. It's okay, Senator Ifanyuba. Sorry? Senator Ifanyuba. Senator Ifanyuba, what I expect from you, or what the Senate expects from you, let me say, is that we should respect our orders. Otherwise, we'll be orderless and disorderly. I thought, if I advise you that you should approach me and tell me what it is. That is what the order says. And nobody is going to deny you the opportunity to speak. But please, distinguished colleagues, this chamber is the chamber of the people of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and we shouldn't reduce it to this kind of discussions. Chief Whip. Chief Whip. Senator Danjumala.
Thank you, Mr. President. My distinguished colleague, my name is Senator La Danjuma, representing Southern Kaduna. I rise on motion 43. By the indulgence of the Senate and the leave of the President of the Senator may make a personal explanation, although there is no question before the Senate, but no controversial matter may be brought forward nor may debate upon. The explanation. The terms of the purpose of statement shall be submitted in details to the President of the Senate when his leave to make it sought.
Mr. President, I wish to bring a request before this Senate humble house that there is a system killing in Southern Kaduna, which I'm seeking the opinion and the help of the Senate to please send military men and police to help us overcome the situation in Southern Kaduna. It has become a very serious matter that many people are being killed. A lot of
Distinguished colleagues, Chief Whip, our colleagues are standing on the aisle. I think you need to call people to order, please. Okay, continue, Senator Danjumala. You should round up, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. The situation is very, very embarrassing, and I'm pleading with the National Assembly to please request the federal government to send police and armed men to go and protect the life of my people and their property. It is becoming unbecoming. This situation has been on for over many years, and it has gone to this time, even though I've been complaining, but situations the other time calmed down, but it has started again, which I pray that the National Assembly will help provide military men to help the situation. Thank you very much, sir.
Senator Barrow Jibrin and Betty, please. Senator Bello Mandia, leave Senator Obasana alone, please. Oh, okay, Senator Saviau, the whip. Thank you very much, distinguished Senator Danjumala. Because you have come under personal explanation, I wish to I would suggest that we talk with the security agencies to upscale the activities around those hotspots in Kaduna, and this is something that we owe the Nigerian people, protecting their lives and property. Thank you very much. Leader of the Senate.
the first business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of distinguished Senator Aliu Sabi Abdullahi on the Open Distance Learning Bill 2020. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Open Distance Learning Bill 2020, SB 446, first reading.
Senator Sumata Adeyemi, please back to your seat. Social distancing. Open Distance Learning Bill 2020 SB 446, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the second business of the day is the presentation of our bill standing in the name of distinguished Senator Mohammed Sani Musa on the Electoral Act Amendment Bill 2020. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Electoral Act Amendment Bill 2020, SB 467, first reading.
Electoral Act Amendment Bill 2020 SB 467, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the third business of the day is the presentation of our bill standing in the name of distinguished Senator Uche Lilian Okunufe on the National School Feeding Establishment, etc. Bill 2020. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, National School Feeding Establishment, etc. Bill 2020, SB 468, first reading.
National School Feeding Establishment, etc. Bill 2020 SB 468, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the fourth business of the day is the presentation of our bill standing in the name of distinguished Senator Ezenwa Francis Onyewuchi on the Labor Act Amendment Bill 2020. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Labor Act Amendment Bill 2020, SB 469, first reading.
Labor Act Amendment Bill 2020 SB 469, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the fifth business of the day is the presentation of our bill standing in the name of distinguished Senator Bima Mohammed Enagi on the National Animal Identification and Management Bureau, Establishment, etc. Bill 2020. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, National Animal Identification and Management Bureau, Establishment, etc. Bill 2020, SB 471, first reading.
National Animal Identification and Management Bureau, Establishment, etc. Bill 2020 SB 471, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the sixth business of the day is the presentation of the reports of the Committee on Tertiary Institutions and Tech Fund in respect of 1. City University of Technology, Auchi, Establishment, etc. Bill 2020. 2. Nigerian Maritime University, Okeren Koko, Establishment, etc. Bill 2020. 3. Federal University of Technology, Manchok, Kaduna State, Establishment, etc. Bill 2020. And 4. Federal Polytechnic, Aba, Establishment, etc. Bill 2020. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Ahmed Babakaita, Chairman of the committee, to move the motion for the Senate to receive the report. I hope he's around.
Senator Ahmed Babakaita is not around. Is anybody present on his behalf? Okay, Senator Professor Sandy Ono.
Thank you, Mr. President. Sandy Ono is my name, Cross River Central. I rise to respectfully invite the Senate to receive the reports of the Committee on Tertiary Institutions and Third Fund on the following. 1. City University of Technology, Auchi Establishment, etc. Bill 2020. Nigerian Maritime University, or Korenkoko Establishment, etc. Bill 2020. Federal University of Technology, Manchok, Kaduna State, Establishment Bill 2020. And the Federal Polytechnic, Aba Establishment, Bill 2020. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator, distinguished Senator I.D. Jiang, please, can you second?
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to second that the Senate receive the reports of the Committee on Tertiary Institutions and TED Fund that have been listed A, B, C, and D. I so second. Thank you.
Senator, Professor, wait, I have to put the question first. Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion moved by Senator Professor Sandy Ono that the Senate receives the reports of the Committee on Tertiary Institutions and TED Fund, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Chairman, you may lay the reports, please. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the seventh business of the day is the presentation of the report of the Committee on Health on the National Health Insurance Scheme Act, Cap N42, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004, Repeal and Reenactment Bill 2020. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Ibrahim Yahaya Oluregbe, Chairman of the committee, to move the motion for the Senate to receive the report.
Senator Ibrahim Yahaya Oluregbe, Chairman.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, my name is Ibrahim Yahaya Oluregbe. I represent Kwara Central District. I rise, Mr. President, to invite the Senate to receive the report of the Committee on Health on the National Health Insurance Scheme Act, Cap N42 LFN 2004, Repeal and Reenactment Bill 2020, SB 65. I so move, Mr. President.
Distinguished Senator Obasani, please second the motion. The motion moved by Senator Ibrahim Oluregbe, Chairman, Senate Committee on Health, that we receive the report of his committee.
Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, my name is Obasani, representing for the Central. I rise to second the motion as moved by my distinguished colleague. I so second, Mr. President.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that the Senate do receive the report of the Committee on Health on the National Health Insurance Scheme, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Chairman, you may lay the reports, please. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the eighth business of the day is the presentation of the report of the Joint Committee on Communications and Trade and Investment on the investigation on increasing rate of drop calls and other unwholesome practices by telecommunications network operators in Nigeria. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Opeyemi Bamidele, on behalf of distinguished Senator Oluremi Shade Tinubu, Chairman of the committee, to move the motion for the Senate to receive the report.
Distinguished Senator Michael Opeyemi Bamidele.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues,
I'm Michael Opeyemi Bamidele. I represent Ekiti Central Senatorial District. Mr. President, on behalf of distinguished Senator Oluremi Shade Tinubu, I do move that the Senate do receive the report of the Joint Committee on Communications and Trade and Investment investigation on the increasing rate of drop calls and other unwholesome practice by telecommunications network operations in Nigeria. I so move, Mr. President.
Distinguished Senator Lola Ashru, can you second, please? The motion by Senator Bamidele Penny.
Mr. President, I am Senator Lola Ashru, representing good people of Kora South. I support the motion as moved by Senator Bamidele. I so submit.
Thank you. Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that the Senate do receive the report of the Committee on Communications, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. You may load the report. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the ninth business of the day is the presentation of the report of the Committee on Land Transport on the National Transport Commission Establishment, etc. Bill 2020. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Buhari Abdul Fatai, Chairman of the committee, to move the motion for the Senate to receive the report.
Senator Abdul Fatai Buhari.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. My name is Buhari Abdul Fatai. I move that the Senate do receive the report of the Committee Land Transport on the National Transport Commission Bill 2020 SB 427. I so move.
To be seconded by Senator Abo. Senator Ishaku Abo, you second the motion moved by Senator Buhari Abdul Fatai.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, my name is Senator Ishaku Abo. I second the motion as ably moved by my distinguished colleague. Thank you, Mr. President.
Very well, Abo. Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that the Senate receives the report of the Committee on Land Transport, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. You may read the report. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the first order of the day is a motion requesting the Senate to consider the request of Mr. President, Commander-in-Chief, for the confirmation of the nomination of the following persons for appointment as non-career ambassadors in accordance with Section 171, Subsection 1, Subsection 2C, and Subsection 4 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, as amended. They are, number 1, Mr. John J. Usanga, non-career ambassador from Akwa Ibom. Number 2, Air Commodore Peter Ndabake Ghana, retired, non-career ambassador, Niger State. Mr. President, distinguished senators, the purpose of this motion on the order paper is for the request of Mr. President, Commander-in-Chief, to be referred to the relevant committee for further legislative action. I therefore move that the request of Mr. President, Commander-in-Chief, be referred to the appropriate committee for further legislative action.
Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I so second the request ably moved by the leader.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that we refer the request of Mr. President for confirmation to the relevant committee say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The request of Mr. President CNC is hereby referred to the Committee on Foreign Affairs for further legislative action to report back within 2 weeks. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the second order of the day is a motion requesting the Senate to consider the request of Mr. President, Commander-in-Chief, for the confirmation of the nomination of Professor Umar Garba Dambata for appointment as Executive Vice Chairman of the Board of the Nigerian Communications Commission, NCC, in accordance with Section 8, Subsection 1 of the Nigerian Communications Commissions Act 2003. Mr. President, distinguished senators, the purpose of this motion on the order paper is for the request of Mr. President, Commander-in-Chief, to be referred to the relevant committee for further legislative action.
Minority Leader.
I so second the motion moved by the leader.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The request is referred to the Senate Committee on Ethics. Distinguished colleagues, the request is referred to the Senate Committee on Communications to report back within a week. Senator Bamidele Opemi, you lead the committee to do the screening and report back Tuesday next week by the grace of God. The chairperson, the vice chair are all unavoidably absent. Thank you. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the third order of the day is a motion requesting the Senate to consider the request of Mr. President, Commander-in-Chief, for the confirmation of the nomination of the following persons for appointment as members of the Code of Conduct Bureau in accordance with Section 154, Subsection 1 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999 as amended, pursuant to Section 1, Subsection 2 and 3 of the Code of Conduct Bureau Act 2004. They are as follows. Number 1, Barrister Ben Emiano, member from Anambra State, representing the Southeast Geopolitical Zone. Number 2, Hon Ihiojua Johnson Agabanaina, member from Edo State, representing the South-South Geopolitical Zone. Number 3, Olayinka Babatunde Balogun, member from Ogun State, representing the Southwest Geopolitical Zone. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, the purpose of this motion on the order paper is for the request of Mr. President, Commander-in-Chief, to be referred to the relevant committee for further legislative action. I therefore move that the request of Mr. President, Commander-in-Chief, be referred to the appropriate committee for further legislative action.
Minority Leader.
Mr. President, I second the motion as moved by the Senate Leader.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The request of Mr. President CNC for confirmation is hereby referred to the Senate Committee on Ethics, Privileges and Public Petitions to report back within 2 weeks. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the fourth order of the day is the consideration of the report of the Committee on Judiciary, Human Rights and Legal Matters on the Criminal Code Act, Cap C-23, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004 Amendment Bill 2020. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, we recall that the report of the committee was laid on Thursday, 2nd July 2020. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Opeyemi Bamidele, Chairman of the committee, to move the motion for the consideration of the report.
Senator Bamidele.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I'm Michael Opeyemi Bamidele, and I represent Ekiti Central Senatorial District. Mr. President, I move that the Senate do consider the report of the Committee on Judiciary, Human Rights and Legal Matters on the Criminal Code Act, Cap C-38, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004 Amendment Bill 2020. Mr. President, I so move.
Senator Surajuddin Ajibola Basiru.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm Dr. Surajuddin Ajibola Basiru. I represent Osun Central Senatorial District. I rise to second the motion ably moved by the Chairman, Committee on the Judiciary, Human Rights and Legal Matters, Senator Opeyemi Bamidele, Central. Thank you, Mr. President.
Distinguished colleague, those in support of the motion moved by Senator Bamidele Opeyemi Michael that the Senate considers the report of its committee, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Senator Bamidele, you can present your report.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, here is the report of the Committee on Judiciary, Human Rights and Legal Matters on a bill for an act to amend the Criminal Code Act, Cap C-38, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004, to delete the statute of limitation on defilement and increase punishment for the offense of kidnapping, remove gender restrictions in the offense of rape, and for related matters. The Criminal Code Act, Cap C-38, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004 Amendment Bill 2019 was sponsored by distinguished Senator Oluremi Tinubu, representing Lagos Central Senatorial District. The bill was read for the first time on Tuesday, 24th September 2019. On Tuesday, 26 November 2019, the Senate deliberated on the general principles of the bill. After extensive debate, it was read the second time and referred to the Senate Committee on Judiciary, Human Rights and Legal Matters for further legislative action. Valid order of referral dated Tuesday, 26 November 2019, to report back with its recommendations. After the referral, Mr. President, the committee held a series of meetings and agreed on the following legislative framework: to consult widely and seek views of stakeholders on the justification for the passage of the bill, and to resort to any other matter incidental thereto, which would assist the committee in the discharge of its assignment. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the objectives of the bill, among others, are to delete the statute of limitation on defilement in sections 218 and 221 of the Criminal Code Act, Cap C-38, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004, and amend the definition of rape in section 357, as well as provide stringent punishment
for the offense of kidnapping in Section 364 of the Criminal Code Act. In furtherance of this assignment, the committee relied on the legislative framework earlier agreed upon as the way forward. Accordingly, in addition to the wide consultations that were made with relevant stakeholders in order to elicit their input on the proposed legislation, the committee also considered divergent views expressed by distinguished senators on the merits of the bill during the second reading stage. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I wish to state here for the avoidance of doubt that from views expressed on the bill, there were opposing arguments on the passage of the bill by the National Assembly. It will interest distinguished senators to know that the committee scrutinized in detail all the views canvassed for and against the passage of the bill, taking into account extant laws on the subject matter. Below are the highlights of the views expressed by stakeholders on the proposed legislation, both for and against. Mr. President, with your permission, I will skip that since we all have copies of this report to page 6, where we talk about observations and findings of the committee. Flowing from the analysis of submissions made by the stakeholders on the bill, and based on our subsequent consideration of the bill in our markup session, the committee hereby makes the following observations and findings. 1, that the introduction of the bill is laudable and commendable, as its passage into law will address the lingering issues of statute of limitation in the prosecution of rape as well as defilement cases and the incessant kidnapping menace which are on the rise in recent times. 2, that even though statute of limitation has been deliberately omitted from the Violence Against Persons Act 2015, which is the prevailing law on the subject matter, intended to give room for prosecution of offenses of this nature, it is not of general application. As such, this proposed amendment is a welcome development. 3, that by virtue of Section 315 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, as amended, dealing with savings and transitional provision, the National Assembly has the legislative competence to amend the Criminal Code Act as an act of the National Assembly by its virtue of being an existing law. 4, that the National Assembly can amend the Criminal Code Act in line with the aforesaid provision, which gives it power to take over all existing laws made prior to its existence.
See the video's logo right here? Well, instead of that, you just drop in your own logo. It used to be that if you wanted this
with the Constitution. 5, that contrary to views canvassed by those
you just drop in your own logo. It used to be that if you wanted this
its passage will usurp the powers of the state to legislate on the subject matter, it should be stated, for the avoidance of doubt, that the proposed bill seeks to amend the Criminal Code Act of 1916 and not Criminal Code Law of the states. And finally, that the bill, when enacted, will apply to the federal high courts in the southern part of the country where the Criminal Code Act is applicable and operational. Recommendation. The Senate Committee on Judiciary, Human Rights and Legal Matters, to which this bill was referred, having considered same, recommends as follows. That the Senate do pass the Criminal Code Act Cap C-38 Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004 Amendment Bill 2020 as amended. We so move, Mr. President.
Any comments? Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, I will start first of all by saying that I'm not a lawyer and I know very little about law. But I think it's important for members who know the law, and there are many of them in this great chamber, to really explain this issue, particularly as it regards the position
which was adopted by this committee in paragraph 5, number 3, 4, and 5 on page 6. That is whether the National Assembly is competent to make law regarding the criminal and penal codes, which are the responsibilities to me of state legislators, and whether we are not going to be constrained by what happened to the Child Rights Act, which the Supreme Court later interpreted after we finished the law to apply only to the Federal Capital Territory. I think these are important issues that we need to clear, before going into the real nitty-gritty, of the law that we are about to enact. I so submit.
Chairman, do you want to respond? Just to throw some light on that.
Thank you, Mr. President. We also have to look into this, but I invite our majority leader, our distinguished colleagues, to take again a second look at paragraph 5 on page 7, which also addresses this issue. That contrary to views canvassed by those opposing the passage of the bill by the National Assembly, on the ground that its passage would usurp the powers of the states to legislate on the subject matter, it should be stated for the avoidance of doubt that the proposed bill seeks to amend the Criminal Code Act of 1916 and not Criminal Code Law of the states. Now, sir, also 6, paragraph 6, that the bill, when enacted, will apply to the federal high courts in the southern part of the country where the Criminal Code Act is applicable and operational. I'm not only making a strong case for the fact that we can do this. In addition, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I'm saying that even if any member of this Senate so decides to ensure the same thing applies in the northern part of the country, the penal code, they can also look into this to amend it to ensure that in our federal high courts, this will also be able to apply in the penal code. Whatever law that was made, that was in existence before the passage of the criminal, of the penal code in the north and the criminal procedure code in the south, CPC, whatever law was in existence, the National Assembly can still legislate on it. And I'm re-emphasizing again, this is an amendment to the Criminal Code Act, which was passed in 1916. Thank you, Mr. President.
Any more comments? Leader of this. Senator Surajudeen Ajibola.
Thank you, Mr. President. Surajudeen Ajibola Bashir, also Central. In addition to what the distinguished chairman of the Committee on Judiciary has said, assuming the contention that the law will only apply to the FCT, the moral authority of the National Assembly to show the way Nigerian law is moving is an additional reason why this bill ought to be passed. Because to me that even assuming it's not applying in a particular state, the fact that it is in practice within the FCT here, they create an impetus for some other states to also want to go by way of that law. Just like even with the Child Rights Act, eventually states have to domesticate more or less what has been taken by the National Assembly. So I would say that it's also showing leadership in terms of how our law should be moving in terms of reform. Thank you, Mr. President.
Leader of this, Senator Bikule Amosu.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. Mine is just to rub it in, because I know that even when this law is eventually passed, states will still have to domesticate it, and they can make it in such a way that it will suit their purpose in the respective states. I just think I should add that the Child Rights Act and so many other ones that we have
domesticated in our various states. Of course, we will look at the peculiar interests of our state in domesticating such bills that is passed from here. Thank you, Mr. President.
Leader of the Senate Committee of the Whole, please.
With this very cogent explanations, I would like to move the motion for the Senate to resolve in the Committee of the Whole to consider the report. I so move.
Minority Leader.
I second the motion that the Senate do resolve into the Committee of the Whole to consider the report.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that the Senate resolves into Committee of the Whole to consider the report close by close, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Distinguished colleagues, we start from page 2 really. Those in favor that clause 1 stands part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clause 2, retain. Those in favor that clause 2 stands part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clause 3, those in favor that clause 3 stands part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clause 4, deleted. Those in favor that clause 4 stands part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clause 5. Clause 5.
Mr. President, my name is Nesuche Lidan Ekunifi. I'm from Anambra State. Mr. President, I think we use this opportunity to have a holistic deal on this. I think the section 5 should read, any person who has unlawful carnal knowledge of a woman or girl, whether married or unmarried. Mr. President, we have marital rape. That's marital rape in Nigeria. It's being observed in page 3, clause 5, definition of rape, section 375. Any person who has unlawful carnal knowledge of a woman or girl, whether married or married, knowledge of a woman or girl, married or married, that's all I want to be. I want you to include that. Yes, if you have carnal knowledge of a woman without her consent, whether married, a husband shouldn't rape the wife. You see the mentality.
Well, I don't know whether it will make any difference really, but if you, Senator Bamidele, you are raising a hand.
Well, I very much understand the point our distinguished colleague is trying to make, but let me speak to the legislative intent of this amendment bill. Sir, one, a woman is a woman, a girl is a girl, whether married or not. This is speaking as to content and as to consent. And the legislative intent here also is to remove gender restriction. So that whether you are a man or a girl or a woman, you know, whether you are a man or a woman, once somebody has unlawful knowledge, it even takes it beyond carnal knowledge. Now, penetration is not only through the traditional means alone. It can even be through the mouth or nose or anus or any part of the body without consent. That is the legislative intent. So, and when you say any person, you know, who had carnal knowledge of a woman, either married or not, then you are also not addressing the man. Now it is any person who has carnal knowledge of anyone as it is. The word woman or girl without her consent or with her consent, the word any person without consent or with consent is the issue before the parliament now. So any person is already covered by girl, woman, married or married. It also goes to say any married woman who, if you have anything to do with a married woman without her consent, pretending to be her husband, and she found out that it was not her husband after all, you have committed rape. The same thing if you pretend to be his wife and you had anything to do with him, regardless of how you made him feel, if you find out later that you were not actually his wife, maybe you got him drunk, you have also raped him. Thank you, sir. So it's much more comprehensive.
Are you satisfied, or you still want the change so that I can put the question?
Mr. President, I understand clearly what he's saying, but it can be any person, whether married or married. Just any person, whether married or married. Yes. Whether married or married.
Any seconder, please. Any seconder to the amendment she is proposing. Oh, you are seconding? No. Secondment for her first. No seconder. Okay, Senator Patrick Abamoro.
Mr. President, my name is Senator Abamoro. I rise to second the motion for amendment of the relevant clause proposed by Senator Kunefe. So I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor that clause 5 stands part of the bill as amended, say aye. Those against say nay. The nays have it. So the clause stands as recommended. Senator Rocha Sokorocha, amendment to
Mr. President, just a further amendment to the amendment.
The amendment did not stand.
So I come up with a fresh amendment. Okay, my amendment is a reference to what distinguished Senator. Clause 5. Now, Mr. President, I realize in this amendment that we're indirectly legitimizing a law when he did mention whether man or woman. Well, how I want, if you will not understand unless I give a background to it. It wouldn't make sense unless I give a background, Mr. President. Please allow me to give a background to this. The point I'm making, strictly sensu, is that if you generalize it, if generalization of this saying any person, rather than being specific to a female, is indirectly, in the course of the law, legitimizing that even a man, you can have a carnal knowledge of a man. So the point is that it should be strict and so female tailored, I use the word female, rather than generalizing it. That's the point I'm making. That's my amendment. But if you don't understand it, I excuse myself.
Senator Rocha Sokorocha, you have not proposed the amendment. You have simply explained as you wanted to. So what is your proposed amendment?
What I'm saying is that what is there is appropriate.
rather than an open-ended thing, my fear about this is legitimizing the illegitimacy of some act that might come through this law. So, thank you.
Clause 6 deleted. Those in favor that clause 6 stands part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clause 7. Clause 7, Senator Abraham Gobir.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, distinguished colleagues. If you look at clause 7, where it says that the principal act is amended, in line 5 by substituting for the words is guilty of felony and is liable to imprisonment for 10 years. The words is guilty of the felony and is liable for imprisonment for life. The question now is, assuming kidnapping results in the death of that person kidnapped. So what is going to happen? Because that guy should face death penalty. But we said life. And even if the person is kidnapped without killing the person, it's life. Then if the man dies, what happens? So the amendment should be, in case of death, then the man should face death penalty. Yes. So that should be the amendment.
Senator Barrow Jibrin.
I second the motion ably moved by my distinguished senator. The amendment ably moved by him.
Question. Those in favor of that clause 7 stands part, as amended, stands part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clause 7 again? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, in addition to amendments that have been done to this clause, the description of kidnapping here has the assumption that it's only men that can be kidnappers, going by what is stated here. It says, section 364, unlawfully imprison any person within Nigeria in such a manner as to prevent him from applying to a court. The assumption is that it's only a man here that can be a kidnapper. So I think it's not proper. It should be as to prevent such person from applying to a court for his release, or from discovering applying to a court to be released, or from discovering to any other person the place where such person in prison, or in such a manner as to prevent any person entitled to have access to such person from discovering the place where he is imprisoned. So it doesn't show gender here. But when you leave it the way it is, it shows there's an assumption that it's only a man that can be a kidnapper, whereas a woman can also be a kidnapper.
I think you are looking at the principle that we are considering what the committee recommended. So you should restrict your decision to this, unless you are suggesting we should go back to the principal act and not take what the committee recommended.
It shows that this remains part of the law if eventually amended. So I think it's wrong to leave it as it is, because it's going to appear in the final, in the amended act whenever it is passed. So, but I think there's something wrong here, and it needs to be corrected. Well, maybe the chairman will.
I don't know, the lawyers here know, but I think it's a matter of interpretation, isn't it? DSP.
Yes, sir. Obi Omo Agege Delta Central. I'm sure the chairman ordinarily should point this out. I've not seen the principal act, but I like to believe that in the definition section, it will make clear there that for purposes of this section, he also refers to she. I'm sure that the chairman will speak to that. Thank you very much.
Let us hear it from the chairman.
Mr. President, and the lawyers here will bear me witness to that. In the first instance, if you look at what is in the Principal Act, to the left of Clause 7, it starts by saying, unlawfully imprisons any person, any, could be man, it could be woman. And again, in the definition section, it's already defined that where you mention his, it will also refer to her. So it's really not, and the word any person already has taken care of this. But even though we already passed Clause 5, Mr. President, I'm sorry, but since I have the privilege of standing on my feet, I want to say that revisiting what distinguished Senator Gubiro said, we could leave this as it is here and then just add, except where such kidnapping results to death, in which case the kidnapper shall be guilty of murder and sentenced to life, to death sentence, punishable with death sentence. But I leave it at the discretion of the Senate whether we want to go back there or not. I just feel I could touch base on that. Oh.
So Clause 7 stands as recommended, right?
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, ordinarily I wouldn't want to draw us back. It's still on this Clause 7. As heinous as kidnapping is, and most particularly those that will result or lead to death, I don't think we should, this chamber. People are moving away from capital punishment. I think we should not be seen not to be in line with best world practices. So I believe that the way it is, we should leave it the way it is and not encourage capital punishment. I just want to say that.
We are past 5. If needs be, we can come back to 5. That is if there is need, because we are passing as amended. But let's conclude with 7. And sorry, you want to second it? Okay, second it, Senator Adiola.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Very distinguished colleague. I rise to second the amendment as proposed by Senator Barao Jubril. The amendment is simply saying that instead of using the word in, which refers to a man, why don't we use such person, as already mentioned by the chairman himself? I believe it will be inconsistent for us to use such a person at the beginning, and in between the body of the report, we will have to use him. If you are not using him or her, such a person will suffice. Yes? Yeah?
The DSP has explained this, the chairman has explained, but apparently Senator Barao is not satisfied, and you too, so I will put the question. Those in favor of Clause 7 as amended, that stands part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. So Clause 8, those in favor that Clause 8 stands part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Explanatory memorandum on page 5. Those in favor that the explanatory memorandum stands part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Short title. Those in favor of the short title stands part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it. The long title on page 2. Those in favor of the long title stands part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, I rise to move the motion for the chair to resume plenary in order to report progress. I so move.
The motion that the chair revert to plenary to report progress.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor that the Senate reverse to plenary for the chair to report progress say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it. Distinguished colleagues, the Senate in the Committee of the Whole considered the report of the Committee on Judiciary, Human Rights and Legal Matters on the Criminal Code Act Cap C38 LFN 2004 Amendment Bill 2020 and approved as follows. Clauses 1 to 6 as recommended, Clause 7 as amended, the explanatory memorandum as recommended, short title as recommended, long title as recommended. Is this a true reflection of what transpired in the Committee of the Whole? Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, I rise to move a motion for that the Criminal Code Act Cap C23 Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004 Amendment Bill 2020 be now read the third time.
Minority Leader.
Mr. President, I second the motion doubly moved by the leader. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Allow the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to amend the Criminal Code Act, Cap C38, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria, 2004, to delete the statute of limitation on defilement, increase in punishment for the offenses of kidnapping, remove gender restriction in the offense of rape, and for related matters 2020, third reading.
A bill for an act to amend the Criminal Code Act Cap C38 Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004 to delete the statute of limitation on defilement, increase in punishment for the offenses of kidnapping, remove gender restrictions in the offense of rape, and for related matters 2020 third reading taken and passed. Congratulations. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the fifth order of the day is the consideration of the report of the Committee on Solid Minerals, Steel Development and Metallurgy on the need for the continuous implementation of policy reforms for the diversification of the Nigerian economy through the solid mineral sector. Distinguished senators will recall that the report of the committee was laid on Tuesday, 9th June 2020. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Umar Tanko Al-Makura to move the motion for the Senate to consider the report of the committee. I so move.
Senator Umar Tanko Al-Makura.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Umar Tanko Al-Makura. I represent Nasarawa South. Mr. President, on behalf of the Senate Committee on Solid Minerals, Steel Development and Metallurgy, I wish to move that the Senate do consider the report of the Committee on Solid Minerals,
state development and methodology on the need for continuous implementation of policy reforms for the diversification of the Nigerian economy through the solid mineral sector. I do move.
Senator Michael Nachi.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Senator Michael Nachi, PhD. I rise to support the motion that the Committee on Solid Minerals, Mines and Steel Development and Metallurgy be allowed to present their report. I so support the motion. Thank you, Mr. President.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against any, the ayes have it. Senator Umar Tanko Al-Makura, you present the report.
Thank you, Mr. President. Report of Committee on Solid Minerals, Mines, State Development and Metallurgy on the roundtable discussion on the need for continuous implementation of policy reforms for the diversification of the Nigerian economy through the solid mineral sector. Introduction. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, you may recall that the Senate, in its sitting of Thursday, 14th November 2019, deliberated on a motion raised by Senator Amosun Ibikule Oyelaja, Ogun Central, and 59 other senators and co-sponsors on the need for the continuous implementation of policy reforms for the diversification of the Nigerian economy through the agricultural and mineral sectors, and subsequently mandated the Senate Committee on Agriculture and Rural Development and Solid Mineral Development to organize roundtable conference with relevant stakeholders to review the various interventions, policies, and programs, both in the agricultural and solid mineral sectors, with a view to addressing the challenges militating against effective impact of the various federal government policies on the economy. Mr. President, the committee, in its determination to ensure expeditious consideration of the mandate given to it, immediately swung into action with the office of the Senate leader by holding a roundtable discussion with the relevant stakeholders on Tuesday, 10th of December 2019, to deliberate and review the various intervention policies and programs in the solid mineral sector with a view to addressing the challenges against effective impact of the various federal government policies on the economy. However, the Senate Committee on Agriculture also organized a separate roundtable discussions. The committee's action is guided by the relevant constitutional provisions as enshrined in the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended, and the Senate Standing Orders 2/2015 as amended. Mr. President, the roundtable discussion with stakeholders on the 10th of December 2019 provided a platform for an interactive session to consider strategies and policies and reforms that will translate to tangible growth in the solid mineral sector. This report highlights the critical challenges in the solid mineral sector and proposes solutions that may be considered by the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria for possible action. Observations and findings. 1. Geoscience data and information. Nigeria's public geoscience data is provided by the Nigerian Geological Survey Agency. The the government institution responsible for generating and archiving and disseminating geosciences data and information in the country. The committee discovered that the level of detailed mineral exploration in Nigeria is abysmally low compared with other mining jurisdictions, even in sub-Saharan Africa. And this can be largely attributed to poor funding of the sector by public and private sectors. Number two, regulatory framework. Nigeria's mining and metals industry is governed by a number of legal and regulatory instruments. The primary instruments are in the 2007 Mineral Act and the 2008 Mineral and Metals Policy. While Nigeria has a low investor perception score, it is likely that as more investors come to understand Nigeria's new mining push, perceptions will start to shift, given the comparable Nigeria's regulatory regime is to some of the best mining investment destinations. However, no reporting standard is in place for the solid mineral sector. The committee observed that no adequate monitoring mechanism were put in place by the regulatory authorities to carry out effective supervision of the industry. Production and revenue. Today, mineral production data in Nigeria and Nigerian mining is unclear and inadequate. A reasonable conclusion can be drawn that the industry is constrained. However, given historical reporting of production by existing firms, together with the fact that most of Nigeria's mineral production is conducted by artisanal miners, it is believed that the production of figures are understated. The committee observed that the NETI audit report that royalty payments were made by the companies without adequate details of quantities of materials produced or mined. From the available statistics, the informal data available from industry participants, it is evident that presently data and revenue leakages are a challenge in the industry. Industry participants. Similar to the other extractive industries, companies in the mining sector are generally classified along the value chain: exploration and mining logistics and transportation, refining and processing and trading, manufacturing, wholesale and retail activities. The committee observed that Nigeria does not currently have any of the majors in active operation due to its relatively underdeveloped mineral assets. There has been a few intermediate to junior mining firms actively engaged in the sector, mostly from Australia, UK, China, Ukraine, and India, and focus primarily on exploration and mining of gold, iron ore, lead, zinc, and coal. There are also some indigenous small companies involved in small-scale mining activities, logistics, and transport. The committee observed that in the oil and gas industry, due to the fluid nature of the product, this transportation occurs largely by tankers and pipelines, while in mining it is typically done by cargo via roads, rails, or ship. Given the bulk nature of the mining volume, transport costs can be a significant fraction of production cost. As such, many exploration mining companies prefer to integrate the logistics and transport components into their operations to better manage costs. And in many cases, processing value chain facilities are located right next to the mines so as to eliminate the need for transportation altogether. However, a number of companies focusing purely on the mainstream Nigeria do not have any dedicated logistics and transport companies, as its mining sector is still in infancy and the infrastructure is still subpar. Look at the transportation of coal in Enugu in the 1960s and 1970s via rail and conveyor belts. Now, processing, refining, ferrous metallurgy, steel production. This segment of the industry focuses on the beneficiation of the mineral ore and refining into industrial products. Examples of such include metal fabrication and alloy manufacturing, and in the case of energy minerals, e.g. coal, power generation. As with the logistics and transport segment, a number of companies also prefer to integrate downstream operations to manage costs and capture some of the value from that segment, creating a business-friendly environment, security, and access to mining finance. While Nigeria has made progress in terms of becoming a business-friendly environment for mining, more work still needs to be done. The 2014 annual survey of the Fraser Institute ranked Nigeria as one of the 10 least attractive jurisdictions in the world for mining investment. The committee observed that capacity building and human capital is greatly lacking in the mining sector. Supporting infrastructure is also lacking in the industry. Financing and business climate is one major challenge of the industry. Security. Lastly, the committee observed that mining is not immune to the anxieties around security in Nigeria, whether it is mine site security, logistics-related security, general terrorism, kidnapping, or basic crimes. Investors have concerns that Nigeria's state must address. The continued presence of illegal mining activities in some of the regions with the attendant risk and community challenges this represents. It is a concern that needs to be tackled. Security concerns, therefore, have the potential to discourage investors in the mining sector. Committee's recommendation. The committee thoroughly analyzed the submissions and presentations by stakeholders during the roundtable discussions and recommended as follows. A, urge federal government to collaborate with states and local governments and the private sector to invest in infrastructure development that will provide private investment in all areas of solid mineral sector. B, urge federal government to invest in the collection of geoscientific information and data of estimates of mineral deposits and grade of our mineral reserves so as to attract investors. C, a national mineral exploration project needs to be funded by the federal government to develop mining blocks to definitive feasibility study, DFS, stage to attract investors to the Nigerian solid mineral sector. D, the Financial Reporting Council of Nigeria should produce accounting standards for the solid mineral sector as it has done for the petroleum sector. The regulatory authority in the solid mineral sector
should ensure strict enforcement of the regulations in accordance with their extant laws. In order to achieve the above objectives, the Committee on Solid Minerals, Mines, Steel, Development and Metallurgy of 9th National Assembly must ensure proactive oversight of the regulatory and administrative functions of the Ministry of Mines and Steel Development and its departments and agencies. E, urge the Senate to take a critical look at the ease of doing mining business in Nigeria in order to identify and expunge all legislative encumbrances hindering real growth and development of the mining sector in Nigeria. F, urge the Senate to review the government-to-government agreement with the government of Russia on the resuscitation of the Ajakuta Steel Company to ensure the proposed development partnership see the steel company commence production of liquid steel in the most realistic time frame while providing legislative support and funding approval for the Nigerian iron ore mining company, NIOMCO, to meet its obligation. G, review investment policies governing transportation and logistics subsector. There needs to be very clear incentive introduced to stimulate private capital injection into this critical enabler. H, the federal government should stimulate the value chain in the solid mineral industry and in the Nigerian economy as a whole by critically looking at the need for infrastructural development in the sector as provided for under the Nigerian Integrated Infrastructure Master Plan. I urge Senate to ensure that a reporting framework is developed which will make it mandatory for operators in the sector to disclose their production quantities, while the claims are to be verified by the mines officers covering the area. Conclusion, Mr. President. The outcome of the roundtable discussion and the proposed solutions, recommendations by the committee are detailed above, provide strategic focus areas for the legislature to review in order to create more robust policy framework for the solid mineral sector. The Senate Committee on Solid Mineral, Steel Development and Metallurgy will need to take dedicated and decisive action to address the challenges identified and provide sustainable and pragmatic solutions to ensure a fully diversified Nigerian economy. Finally, Mr. President, the committee wishes to express its gratitude to the President of the Senate, the leadership, and distinguished senators for the confidence reposed on it to carry out this assignment. I therefore move, Mr. President. Thank you.
Any comments? Senator Adi Young.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. I remain Senator Adi Young. I'm from Plateau North. Mr. President, this report as presented has to do with one of the two sectors that have the highest potential and promise for the needed diversification of the Nigerian economy, the solid mineral sector, and of course agriculture. This well thought out
roundtable that has brought out far-reaching recommendations for the being considered will, if adopted and implemented, will definitely bring about the needed turnaround in this sector. Distinguished colleagues, the mining industry, as presented by the report, is still yet to attract the major participants that have the well-capitalized capacity that will result in actualizing the value chain that will benefit the nation. The industry is still dominated by artisanal and illegal mining, along with the consequences of revenue not accruing to the Federation account. I therefore support the far-reaching recommendations in this report, and of course, endorse the need for a business-friendly environment to be created for the mining industry to thrive, and particularly policies that will encourage these artisanal miners and position them to grow, to become not only small-scale participants, but that they will grow one day to become major participants in the industry. I therefore support and endorse these recommendations for the consideration of the Senate. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Olubunmi Adetunbi.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. My name is Olubunmi Adetunbi, representing Ekiti North. I want to congratulate the effort of the committee in putting this roundtable together. We recall that this roundtable was one of the major sectoral interventions of the Senate towards the development of our economy. And what they have reported here is very robust and extremely value-adding to the intention of the Senate. However, Mr. President, reading through the recommendations, what comes to mind is how do we push this agenda forward? Because substantial time and deliberation has gone into the production of this report. I see four broad areas of intervention, Mr. President. One is legislation. The other is policy. And then you have regulation and enforcement and operations. It will be important, Mr. President, for the actionable part of this recommendation in these four domains to be so identified, and separate memorandum from the Senate should go to agencies that are responsible for the legislative review, which is ourselves, the policy, which is the ministry, the regulation, which is some agencies within the sector that have regulatory responsibility, and operations for those that have operating licenses. The danger in one single transmission to a ministry is the risk of this important information not getting to the respective agency. I want to recommend this very strongly, Mr. President.
Senator Vikula Moso.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. Ibikunle Amosun, I represent Ogun Central. Let me join my colleague in commending this, what I call very detailed and incisive report by the committee, led by my brother, Senator Al-Makura. Mr. President, we all recall what led to this, and that is the need for us to diversify our economy in Nigeria. And going through this report, I could see that the roundtable was far-reaching. Indeed, it was everybody that has something to do. All the stakeholders, more or less, were part of this roundtable. I want to support what distinguished Adetunbi just said, that the far-reaching recommendation that has the canvas that is being canvassed here, we should send this to those stakeholders for them to take ownership of all the recommendations that is listed here. Of course, it's just like stating the obvious, that the challenges that this mining sector is facing, they've enumerated them here, and I think what we should do as a Senate is to ensure that this does not just stay here alone with us in the National Assembly. We should immediately communicate with the respective stakeholders that have something to do with this far-reaching recommendation that has been advanced in this report. Of course, we know nothing can happen without funding. We know nothing will happen again without the necessary infrastructure being in place. Before now, we have all these issues. Security has now been added to it, because I've seen that that is one area too that we should look into. And I'm happy that they've enumerated this. So, Mr. President, what I will advise is that all the recommendations, all the 9 recommendations from A to I, we will now consolidate them just as what he has said. And we should write to the respective stakeholders. Of course, the one that will go to the executive, we should let them know. The one that will go to the, what I call the practitioners themselves, the private sector, it should be such that everybody should be part of what is happening. Unless you create such enabling environment, people with wherewithal to invest, they will not come. And that is why I'm happy with what we are seeing. We need information too, and they've clearly stated all this. So all we need to do is just to push this forward and ensure and follow up, so that we should not just let it just lie here like that. And I know that we don't do that, so we should just commend them once again. And still, I want to urge them through this Senate that they should follow up and see that all these recommendations are followed up and that they are being put into use. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Barrow Jibril.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm Senator Barrow Jibril, Representative North. Mr. President, let me join others to commend the committee, particularly the chairman, for a job well done. Mr. President, year in, year out, month in, month out, day in, day out, there has been discussion. There we continue discussion and conversation in respect to the challenges being faced by the solid mineral industry or sector in this country. I remember in the last Senate, there were such discussions, such debates, but this problem, the problem being faced by the industry, is still there. But thank God, the roundtable has addressed the issue once again, and it has come with far-reaching recommendations, which includes everything, all encompassing. And I'm sure if we implement, if these recommendations are followed through and well implemented, I'm sure we will not be crying of lack of revenue coming to our coffers, or we will not remain in a situation where we only largely rely on the revenue from the oil sector. The irony is this: we are being shortchanged not only by Nigerians. Foreigners coming to this country to extract our solid minerals without paying the appropriate money due to government. I think this has to stop. And the government on its own part, as said, included in this report, should provide the enabling environment to make sure that the industry is put in place, properly put in place, so that operators can come in, extract solid mineral, and then pay the necessary money due to government, so that government can have the necessary revenue to fund these activities. So I want to emphasize the fact that we should find a means, the leadership, indeed the entire National Assembly, particularly the Senate, should move forward to make sure that this report does not suffer the same fate with reports that have been produced on this kind of debate before now. We should make sure that the report the report is well implemented, because a lot of energy has been put into putting together this report. A lot of resources. We've done, the committee has done a good job. So let's not allow this job, what they've done, to just be wasted. So I want to urge my colleagues, we should support the recommendation, pass it through, and then move forward to make sure that all what is here is well implemented for the betterment of this country. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Muhammad Sani Musa, representing Niger East Senatorial District. I think the issue of solid minerals in this country has been, for a very long time, relegated. And with this report, I think the federal government and Nigerians will see reason. Will see reason why solid minerals development is very important to our economic development as well. Almost every sector or every section of this country has one thing or the other that can turn the economy of this country as a whole. We have been dependent on oil for a very long time. And today, we are seeing the serious consequences that relying on one monolithic economy is causing to this country. So what I think this committee has done is a very wonderful job. And there is need for us also to look at the informal sector within the mining industry, the artisans. There is need for this government to encourage them. Instead of chasing them, if there's a way we can do it, make them come in clusters. Encourage them, since we do not have the multinationals that have the economic strength at this moment. Instead of allowing the Chinese people to come into this country and do the same thing that our local people can do. Because the way they are doing the mining at the moment is not different from the way our locals are doing. So if we can encourage also our local artisans, give them the necessary support, give them those small machines that these Chinese people come to this country with, and then set up a kind of guidelines for them on how they can work, and then support them in order to abate those serious consequences of pollution that usually come with this exploration. Just as what happened in Niger State some time ago. So this is a sector that we need to collect all the data. Informal data is very important, because this country cannot rely to saying we want to be industrialized and we want to be industrialized when actually we are not there yet. So we support the artisans to form maybe cooperatives and give them the necessary financial support and technical support so that they will be encouraged and the economy will be better for it. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Rocha Sokorocha.
Mr. President, Rocha Sokorocha, Imo West, distinguished colleagues, I am one of the people that believe that this country of ours is highly blessed. And God must have shown some form of partiality when it comes to Nigeria. There's absolutely no resources, material resources, that we do not have in this country. What has been our problem is management of our resources. The presentation by my colleague, Senator Makura, and recommendations is just very timely. Mr. President, we will lack nothing in this country. If you know the quantum of gold we have in Zamfara, Niger State, Sokoto, Kebbi, any nation with such resources
have been considered a developed nation. What have been our major challenges is the issue of management. And thank God that this Senate is looking critically to what can be done to improve on the revenue of our nation. Mr. President, while I agree with most of the recommendations, what Senator Sani has just deposited here, in terms of foreigners who engage in illegal mining, taking away our resources, without our consent or in collaboration with some of our people, the people I call who don't understand on the need for us to support our own. Mr. President, in the light of this, we should be able to allow state governors to play a role, decentralize this whole mining process, and let the state be directly in charge. So this has a constitutional provision about ownership of whatever is beneath the earth. For as long as it's centralized with the Federal Republic of Nigeria, we might not get the best results. And I suggest that states should be paid, states should be challenged to produce, and federal government provide a counterpart funding for whatever they're able to produce. The resources in this land is enough, and our poverty is really an apparent poverty which does not reflect practical realities if we manage our resources very well. And I do not know to what extent recommendation has been made as to how we're going to stop these foreigners, especially the Chinese, who comes around our rural areas mining, and some of them who gets contracts, like the construction of Shiroro Dam. If you know the quantum of gold packed from Shiroro Dam and natural resources from Shiroro Dam was enough to pay for that contract 100 times. But this will just come there in the process of digging a dam and cut away our resources. I think they should not look at Nigeria as a country that is not wise. So I recommend this, and if you can go a step further, that under your leadership, Mr. Senate President, that you take a step further on this solid measure to make it an alternative to creating revenue for our dear nation. So I so support this very wonderful report of this great committee. Thank you.
Lastly, Senator Ajibola.
Mr. President, I'm Surajuddin Ajibola Bashiru, Osun Central Senatorial District, distinguished colleagues. I join other distinguished colleagues in commending the committee for a very thorough job done and for very apt presentation by my leader, Senator Al-Makura. I would only want to add that this Senate, even though I'm not putting it in a motion, but that this Senate, through its leadership, will have to shadow the committee not to let the work they have done beautifully here to be done. I've looked at a series of recommendations which are very good, but I would want us to task the committee further to give timeline and also pursue relevant MDA that will be able to carry out the relevant recommendation, so that it will not just be just a report that's going to be rotting on the shelves in our library. For instance, the recommendation 1 that the executive to collaborate with state and local government and private sector to invest in infrastructure. I think it may not be too much to expect our committee to engage with relevant federal government and possibly state government authorities and private sector at a stakeholder meeting to agree on the minimum irreducible content of the infrastructure required to galvanize that economy. Then in terms of recommendation B2, I think it's not just enough. All of us have been saying we need to invest in collection of data. What are the minimum irreducible data that we need to invest? Then how do we get budgetary and possibly extra budgetary funding to be able to do so? So I would say that this work has been able to open our eyes into the various challenges. It has given us ideas on where we should go, but we must now lay concrete positions as to
how do we arrive where we believe we must arrive to? To be talking about the need to develop this sector of the economy will only be reiterating what other distinguished senators have said. The time is to act and ensure that this becomes implementable. Thank you.
Distinguished colleagues, let's go to the recommendations. The committee's recommendations on page 25 of the report. Recommendation A, that the committee do recommend to the 9th Senate to urge the federal government to collaborate with the states and local governments and the private sector to invest in infrastructure development that will provide private investment in all areas of solid mineral sector. Those in favor of recommendation A, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Recommendation B, that the 9th Senate do urge the federal government to invest in the collection of geoscientific information, data, and data of estimates for mineral deposits and grade of our mineral reserves so as to attract investors. Those in favor of this recommendation say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Recommendation C, a national mineral exploration project needs to be funded by the federal government to develop mining blocks to definitive feasibility study, DFS, stage to attract investors in the Nigerian solid mineral sector. The vehicle to be used to execute this project is proposed to be a special purpose vehicle, SPV, model operationally like the now defunct Nigerian Mining Corporation, MC. Credit Suisse has expressed willingness to finance a detailed exploration project in Nigeria that will achieve the above-mentioned objective to the tune of over $150 million, but will require the federal government to secure the project funding with a sovereign guarantee. Those in favor of recommendation C, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Recommendation D, the Financial Reporting Council of Nigeria should produce accounting standards for the solid mineral sector as it has done for the petroleum sector. The regulatory authorities in the solid mineral sector should ensure strict enforcement of the regulations in accordance with their extant laws. In order to achieve the above objective, the Committee on Solid Minerals, Mines, Steel Development and Metallurgy of 9th National Assembly must ensure proactive oversight of the regulatory and administrative functions of the Ministry of Mines and Steel Development and its departments and agencies. Those in favor of recommendation D, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Recommendation E, the 9th Assembly needs to take a critical look at the ease of doing mining business in Nigeria in order to identify and expunge all legislative encumbrances hindering real growth and development of the mining sector in Nigeria. Without question, Nigeria's mining sector faces a range of important challenges. However, this can be solved if a clear plan is articulated and the challenges addressed within the right strategic framework. Those in favor of this recommendation say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Recommendation F, the 9th Assembly needs to review the government-to-government agreement with the government of Russia on the resuscitation of the Ajaokuta Steel Company to ensure the proposed development partnership sees the steel company commence production of liquid steel in the most realistic time frame while providing legislative support and funding approval for the Nigerian iron ore mining company, NEMCO, to meet its obligation of supply of 2,156,000 metric tons of iron ore with 63% to 64% iron concentration, Fe, for the production of 1.2 million metric tons of liquid steel annually. The National Steel Raw Material Exploration Agency will require adequate funding to carry out its mandate of steel raw material exploration to support the drive to have Ajaokuta Steel Company operating at full capacity. These raw materials include coking coal, limestone, dolomite, and refractories. Those in favor of recommendation F, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Recommendation G, the 9th Assembly needs to, as a matter of urgency, review the investment policies governing transportation and logistics subsector. There needs to be very clear incentives introduced to stimulate private capital injection into this critical enabler. The Nexim Bank Sea-Link project, a dedicated regional shipping operation designed to bridge maritime infrastructure gaps and promote short sea intra-African trade. This project and more like it should be encouraged by the legislature as it would rapidly open up the industry on an industrial scale, encouraging more private participation more private participation and increased capital inflows. There should be another one with a financial house and land transport outfit. Those in favor of this recommendation say aye. Those against say nay. Recommendation H. The federal government should stimulate the value chain in the solid minerals industry and the Nigerian economy as a whole by critically looking at the need. I don't know, it's like something is missing. At the need for. Is anything missing? Because, Chairman, do we have anything? Am I the only one with this? I think something is missing. So if there is, yes, because there is a need for something. No, the chairman is consulting. Okay, we'll go to I, maybe before the chairman sorts that one out. We'll go to recommendation I. The Ninth Assembly needs to ensure that a reporting framework is developed which will make it mandatory for operators in the sector to disclose their production quantities, while the claims are to be verified by the mines officers covering the area. The legislature must work to ensure there is a collaboration between the Ministry of Mines and Steel Development, State Government Ministry of Works, and other agencies awarding construction-related contracts to compute royalty on the basis of bill of quantities submitted by companies. This should also apply to cement companies. Royalty should be computed on the basis of raw materials, limestone, sand, gypsum, coal, and iron used in producing each ton of cement. A review of the present industry fiscal regime by providing a dynamic and industry-wide simplified method of calculating royalty payments on solid minerals that is appropriate and regular is also urgently required. Those in favor of recommendation I say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Can we go back to H? Did we find what is missing? Or do we delete it?
Mr. President, number 8, H. The federal government should stimulate the value chain in the solid mineral industry and in the Nigerian economy as a whole by critically looking at the need for infrastructural development in the sector as provided for under the National Integrated Infrastructure Master Plan. Thank you, sir.
Okay, Secretary, take note. So those in favor of recommendation H, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Well, distinguished colleagues, thank you very much. Let me join our colleagues who commented on this report. I want to also commend the chairman and the committee members of the Solid Minerals Committee of the Senate for a job well done. When the Senate planned and executed the roundtable discussions, we were conscious of particularly 3 areas that we felt at that time needed serious attention: the power sector, the agricultural sector, and of course, the solid mineral sector. We all believe that these sectors are so important if Nigeria would make any meaningful progress in the sphere of economic development. I believe that the committee has done so much work, and I want to agree completely with submission by Senator Olubimi Adetumbi that we disaggregate the recommendations into actionable plans and those responsible for implementing them. Where we need legislation, it is our duty to have the legislation either in form of amendment or new legislations to ensure that the solid minerals sector is supported. Where we need policy, we suggest to the executive policy areas that the executive should focus really, in addition to what they are already doing. And of course, guidelines would be necessary on how this sector is operated. I want to agree also with Senator Rochas Okorocha that we have people coming from outside the country and going into our mining sites and exploiting our minerals without any due process. I think we should declare such people criminals, whether they are Chinese or indeed anybody else, because this is going against our sovereignty. Nobody should come into our country and go to our sites, exploit our minerals and go over with them. We want to attract foreign direct investment, but we should have proper processing of everyone or every company or concern that wants to participate in this sector. So what is happening is criminal and is everywhere. I know someone told me in Plateau State, people will just come and land with their helicopters, take, mine solid minerals and fly away. And it happens in the north central part of Nigeria where we have a lot of solid minerals, probably in Zamfara too, because we have a lot of solid minerals there. I think it's for us in government to ensure that this thing is stopped, that we attract people, process their requests. And I want to agree with the committee that we should have ease of doing business in the solid mineral sector, even though we have a general one which the Vice President's office is handling, but probably it's time we look at specifically the area of the solid mineral to see how we can make it much, much easier for investors to participate in this. With this, I want to advise that the disaggregation of our recommendations into actionable points, the Committee on Solid Minerals and National Planning should look at the recommendations and put them into actionable points that when we send this to the executive, we can attach the actionable plans so that the agencies, in fact, we need to mention which agency is supposed to implement what, so that we have specific things that we can advise the federal government to do. And even after that, we should continue to follow it up to see how far the executive is doing anything about this, because this is one area that we can make Nigeria better, we can have more revenues. Presently, as the report indicates, the GDP, the contribution of the solid minerals to the GDP is only 0.33%. That is abysmal and unacceptable. We can do far better than this. So I want to once again congratulate our Committee on Solid Minerals for this field. Thank you very much. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the sixth order of the day is a motion standing in the name of distinguished Senator Oji Uzo Kalu and 101 others on the need to resuscitate and reactivate the rehabilitation and concession of the Eastern Rail Line project. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Oji Uzo Kalu to move the motion.
The Chief Whip of the Federation.
Mr. President and my colleagues, my names are Oji Uzo Kalu, representing Abia North of Abia State. The need to resuscitate and reactivate rehabilitation and concess the Eastern Rail Line. That one of the greatest challenges facing the nation as emerging economy is infrastructural development. Specifically, the movement of goods and persons from one point to another is becoming very cumbersome, if not hazardous. The federal government, in recognition of the fact there is a desired need for transformation of Nigerian railway system into a more dynamic and functional one, encourage the use of rail to reduce the road traffic congestion problems and open up the sector to private sector investment to reduce its burden on the federal government. The federal government in 2017 entered into agreement with General Electric, a US-based company, under the rehabilitation and concession of Western and Eastern rail lines to connect Aba, Rivers, Lagos, Oyo, Ogun, Kwara, Kaduna, Katsina, Enugu, Bauchi, Gombe, Plateau, Borno, Yobe, Kano states. And while the western lines of about 1,120 kilometers from Lagos to Kano and to Nguru, 230 kilometers. Fontua, 100 kilometers. Karuna Dama, 121 kilometers. The eastern lines are from Port Harcourt to Kaduna, 915 kilometers. Maiduguri, 709 kilometers, and just 35 kilometers. In spite of the fact that the rails are more efficient in haulage of bulk loads over long distances in environmental and economic ease, including cargoes and petroleum products, the sector suffers the neglect, especially the Eastern Rail Line, which commenced in Port Harcourt in Rivers State, passing through Abia, Enugu, Benue, Kogi, Kaduna, Kano, Gombe, and even in Cross River, and terminates into Maiduguri, Borno State. And this can also enter into from Maiduguri to Nguru, from Nguru to Hadeja, and Hadeja back to Kano. And it will making it the largest single rail network in Nigeria, which passes the 5 political zones. Eastern Railway Line had been denied a similar attention given to Lagos Western Rail Line in spite of the fact that investigation revealed that Eastern Rail Line remains the most lucrative route in Nigeria. More disturbed that in spite of being the most lucrative route in Nigeria and a distance of 1,402 kilometers passing through Aba in Abia State, the commercial nerve center of the Southeast, is regrettably left in comatose condition, resulting Nigerian Railway Corporation losing at least 10.4 billion each year since 2004, totaling about 63 billion in the past 6 years. Despite the colossal loss of revenue on this corridor and the attendant economic benefit that will be accrued, the commencement of rehabilitation and concession of the Eastern Rail Lines as entered by the executive had not been taken up, like that of Western Corridor, with 2 to 3 different companies, EG Transit and its consulting partners, which include Sino Hydro of China, Dutch-based APM terminals, for unexplained reasons. The federal government, the Federal Executive Council is yet to give approval for the commencement, which leaves not just the government as losers, but almost the host communities in the rail line from Port Harcourt to Maiduguri. Non-existence of airports or land ports in the whole of Abia State, which is high volume of commercial activities, it has posed a serious hindrance to export and import activities, a situation that would have necessitated a prioritized consideration and commencement of concession agreements, especially in consideration that the Senate has approved loans for the infrastructure development. We resolved the executive prioritizing the commencement of the rehabilitation and concession agreement for the Eastern Corridor in recognition of its huge revenue potential to the national economy and for movement of people to reduce the burden on the debilitated roads in the axis. Mandated committee on transport to interface with the relevant ministries and agencies to executive to facilitate the commencement of Eastern Corridor. Mandate its committee on compliance to ensure that the compliance and report back to the Senate in 3 weeks for further legislative action. Mr. President, my colleagues, this is a very simple thing. Since the Senate had approved 22 billion, I think it would be right that Eastern Rail Line should be included. Anybody excluding it is not to the benefit of the people and not for the benefit of the economy. We are talking about diversifying the economy. Everything in Nigeria could be manufactured in Aba. There's nothing that this country wants to manufacture that cannot be manufactured in Aba in Abia State. From automobile to motor parts to hardware and to cars, so even they can manufacture people like leader. Mr. President, I so submit.
Senator Rogers Okoro.
Mr. Senate President, Owole Anayo Rochas Okorocha, Imo West, my dear distinguished colleagues, I rise to support the motion as ably presented on this hallowed chamber by no other person but the Chief Whip of the 9th Senate. Mr. President, in line with his discussion presentation, I only want to make a slight observation that most of the time I hear people make presentation on the floor of this house. It looks like we're not talking about the same country, one Nigeria. I think we should begin to look at this nation from the perspective of being a one nation, indivisible, indissoluble. And what that means is such great projects or programs like the railway shouldn't be such that this nation has to be reminded of where it should go or where it should not go. Because the benefit to one part of this nation is a benefit to all. Abia State, southeast, is not on its own without other parts of this nation. And what that means, Mr. President, is when this rail passes through Abia, it will not be only used by the Igbos or the Southwest. It's for the entire Nigeria. What Ujus Okalu is simply saying that this will help to better the transportation and conveyance of goods and materials from one part of this country to another. And it will help this nation. So, Mr. President, I want to support him, and I want to appeal that his motion be given an urgent attention, especially when it begins to give some part of this country a feeling of neglect, a feeling of marginalization. When we heard about railway crossing Ibadan, Lagos, many parts of this country, and that particular part of the East is not considered. To the ordinary man on the street, they misinterpret this. So I want to say that his own bill should not be looked at as a sectional thing, but for the entire nation. That is something that is good for Nigeria. So I rise to support that very railway proposal should be given an urgent attention, Mr. President.
Deputy Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Robert Office, representing Udundo. I rise to support this motion, which has been presented in a very articulate manner. There is no doubt that the fact that we want to diversify our economy needs real the transportation infrastructure. And the rail system is one of the major factors in developing a very viral, dynamic, and reliable infrastructural development. It's okay. Mr. President, the development of this axis will solve many problems. One is that it provides ease of transportation of goods from the south to the north and also from the north to the south. Secondly, it's going to reduce the incidence of accidents on the roads, because the incidence of accident on roads in the eastern part of the country is so tremendous. And this axis of rail system is going to reduce the incidence of accidents on our roads. And thirdly, movement of goods by rail will also reduce the incidence of armed robbery, because transportation by road exposes Nigerians to armed robbery on our road, banditry. So I'm really in support of this motion, and I want to congratulate the Chief Whip for bringing out this motion. The fact that almost 101 senators are in support of this motion shows that it's well accepted, well received by all. By so doing, Mr. President, I want to support this motion for adoption by this House chamber. Thank you, Mr. President.
The distinguished colleagues will go to the prayers. Prayer 1. Urge the executive to prioritize the commencement of the rehabilitation and concession agreement for the Eastern Corridor in recognition of its huge revenue potentials to the national economy, and for movement of people to reduce the burden on dilapidated roads in this axis. Those in favor of this prayer say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Prayer 2. Mandate is Committee on Land Transport to interface with the relevant ministry and agencies of the executive to facilitate the commencement of the Eastern Corridor. Those in favor of this prayer say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. And prayer 3. Mandate is Committee on Compliance to ensure compliance and report back to the Senate in 3 weeks for further legislative action. Those in favor of prayer 3 say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Leader of the Senate. But we have already passed. Is it additional prayer?
Thank you, Mr. President. My distinguished colleagues, my main is that
Is it an additional prayer or amendment? Okay.
I pray the line from the south to the northeast should branch through Kafanchan to Kaduna. Should be added, please.
Any seconder? Okay, Senator Patrick Abomoro.
Mr. President, my name is Senator Abomoro. I rise to second the amendment proposed by Senator La. I so second.
You are out of sync. It's not an amendment. You say it's an additional prayer.
Okay. Well, I second the additional prayer moved by Senator La.
Thank you. Those in favor of the additional prayer say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the seventh order of the day is a motion standing in the name of distinguished Senator Umar Sadiq Suleiman and 7 others on the urgent need to ensure strict compliance with statutory regulations and provisions regarding the Nigerian diving sector, and also urge the Ministry of Labor to, as a matter of urgency, inaugurate the Diving Advisory Board to ensure the regulation of its operations in the sector. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Sadiq Suleiman Umar to move the motion.
Senator Sadiq Suleiman.
Thank you, Mr. President. My distinguished colleagues, I am Sadiq Suleiman Umar. I represent the good and decent people of Kwara North. Mr. President, I rise to move the motion that there is urgent need to ensure strict compliance with the statutory regulations and provisions regarding the Nigerian diving sector. I also urge the Ministry of Labor to, as a matter of urgency, inaugurate the Diving Advisory Board to ensure the regulation of its operations in the sector. With me are my co-sponsors. The Senate knows that in line with the provision of the Diving at Work Regulations 2018, the Minister of Labor and Employment is mandated to set up a Divers Advisory Board to regulate the activities of divers in the diving sector and oversee the activities of diving, including safety, education, remuneration, and local content development. Also note that in recent times, there has been rising complaints by Nigerian divers who blame the underdeveloped state of the profession on unregulated practices and foreign dominance to the failure of the Ministry of Labor and Employment to establish a diving advisory board. Aware that offshore oil and gas exploration comprising wells drilled in shallow or deep water requires commercial diving intervention to execute a range of hazardous underwater activities in extremely challenging, irrespirable environments. Hence, commercial diving has become one of the most dangerous but rewarding professions in Nigeria and all over the world. Also aware that in line with the schedule of the Nigeria Oil and Gas Industry Content Development Act 2010, local participation in all aspects of oil operations, including following 65% of divers in offshore energy projects, must be Nigerian. 60% of steel ropes used in projects must be made locally. All contracts awarded in excess of $100 million must include a labor clause mandating the use of minimum percentage of Nigerian labor or the use of indigenous companies of a minimum size. Worried that despite the above provisions, including the provisions of Section 28 of Section 1 of the same Act, which provides inter alia that Nigerians shall be accorded first consideration for employment and training in any project executed by any operator or project promoter in the Nigeria oil and gas industry. There have been recurring concerns by Nigerians over the domination of foreign divers who have allegedly flooded the Nigerian oil and gas market, depriving the indigenous diver by about 90%. Also worried that according to the President, Underwater and Hyperbaric Medical Society of Nigeria, over 2,000 Nigerian divers are recently being unemployed at the expense of the employment of foreign divers. Concerned that with the rising unemployment rates in the face of the viability of the diving sector and its position to contribute revenue to the economy, while possibly catering for over 10% of the nation's unemployment margin, it is curious to know that the inability of the Ministry of Labor and Employment remains the impediment in this regard, and desirous to enforce compliance with statutory provisions under the Nigerian Local Content Law, and particularly the driving profession in Nigeria, in order to ensure proper regulation of the profession for optimal performance towards strengthening the Nigerian economy and its workforce. Accordingly, the Senate resolves, 1, mandate the Committee on Local Content to liaise with the Minister of Labor and Employment with a view to causing the immediate inauguration of the Divers Advisory Board to regulate and oversee the activities of diving in Nigeria. And 2, mandate the committees on local content to investigate the claims of contravention of the relevant statutory provisions in the area of diving in the oil and gas sector. I so move.
I need someone to second Senator Sani Musa.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Muhammad Sani Musa, representing Niger East Senatorial District. I stand to second the motion as read by my distinguished colleague, Senator Sadiq, on the need for the federal government to look into the issue of divers in the oil sector in Nigeria. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, will go to the prayers. Mandate, prayer 1. Mandate the Committee on Local Content to liaise with the Minister of Labor and Employment with a view to causing the immediate inauguration of the Divers Advisory Board to regulate and oversee the activities of diving in Nigeria. Those in favor of prayer 1, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. And prayer 2, mandate the Committee on Local Content to investigate the claims of contravention of relevant statutory provisions in the area of diving in the oil and gas sector. Those in favor of this prayer, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the eighth order of the day is a motion standing in the name of distinguished Senator Ibrahim Hassan Hadeja on the need for the establishment of a military unit in Jigawa State. Mr. President, we recall that on Monday, 1st July 2020, the Senate, by Order 42, subsection 2 of the Standing Order, approved that this motion be moved on the next legislative day, which is today. Accordingly, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Ibrahim Hassan Hadeja to move the motion.
Senator Ibrahim Hassan Hadeja.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, Senator. My name is Ibrahim Hassan Hadeja, representing Jigawa Northeast. And the motion is on the need for the establishment of a military unit in Jigawa State. I read, the Senate notes with concern the invasion of our communities by insurgents and bandits fleeing mounting pressure from across other northern parts of the country where security agencies are tackling them head on. The Senate also notes the need to secure our communities from these migrant alien settlers masquerading and mixing with herders trooping to the area because of the fertile floodplain and thick forest cover. The Senate is also aware that the zone is bordered by Yobe and Bauchi states and Niger Republic, and has faced challenges of insurgents sneaking in to take temporary refuge from army operations there, but proactive measures by the security operatives in conjunction with the reporting mechanism using traditional institutions has ensured they are neutralized before they localize and take root. The Senate is worried that most of these herders and other armed groups that mingle with them appear to be non-nationals, and their activities in the last 12 months has assumed a dangerous dimension, resulting in attacks and raiding of villages. The Senate is worried also that they have adopted unwarranted destruction of farm produce to discourage farmers from planting, in what appears to be an extension of the strategy in the far northwest to disrupt agricultural production and precipitate calamitous food insecurity in the country to aid in their strategy of creating instability through hunger and local economic devastation. The 3 local governments affected form the floodplain of the Hadeja River Basin and are the most productive in the zone, providing fertile land and abundant water to thousands of families who can achieve 3 harvests annually. The Senate is saddened that the perpetrators have no fear or regard for the police and the local inhabitants, and the local inhabitants are also losing confidence in the authorities, as no one has yet been apprehended and successfully prosecuted. And the Joint Operations Squad, Operation Salama, is covering all 27 local governments in the state, and so dedicating it to that operation will seriously hamper its larger overall objective. The Senate is concerned that several lives have been lost as the marauders mercilessly hack down innocent villagers in a gruesome manner, with the latest incident claiming almost 10 lives, which is about 2 weeks ago. There is a need to take preventive measures so as to avoid the Zamfara and Katsina experience. The Senate accordingly resolves to 1. Urge the federal government to direct the immediate deployment of a semi-permanent platoon or forward operation base of soldiers to decisively uproot the marauders from the surrounding communities so that they can resume their farming and other economic activities. I must add here, Mr. President, that the governor has committed in writing to the Defense Headquarters to provide the accommodation and associated logistics that will help in establishing this base in time. Prayer number 2, call on NEMA and the Federal Ministry of Agriculture and the Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs to immediately arrange for distribution of relief materials and agricultural inputs respectively, so the communities affected can get some relief and resume immediate cultivation to take advantage of the rainy season to recoup some of their losses. I so move, Mr. President.
Senator. Would you like to second the motion moved by Senator Brown Hadeja?
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, my name is Senator Abba Moro. I rise to second the motion moved by my colleague, Senator Hadeja, for the urgent need to establish an army post in Jigawa. I so move to second, Mr. President.
Distinguished colleagues, let's go to the prayers. The Senate accordingly resolves to urge the federal government to direct the immediate deployment of a semi-permanent platoon or forward operation base of soldiers to decisively uproot the marauders from the surrounding communities so they can resume their farming and other economic activities. Those in favor of prayer 1 say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. You are raising your hand. Amendment? Okay.
Mr. President, my name is Mohammed Sani Musa, representing Niger East. The amendment I propose is to urge the federal government to direct for the immediate establishment of a permanent military base and deployment of troops to decisively uproot the criminal bandits in 5 states. Niger, Jigawa, Zamfara, Kaduna, and Sokoto, affected by these acts of insurgency.
I don't know whether that is the intention of the sponsor of the motion, whether you will make it a separate listing, but those states you have mentioned, I think some of them have military bases, isn't it? So you can, I don't think we can say they should establish military bases again. So you can maybe add Niger, I don't know, if you don't have.
States affected by these acts of insurgency.
Okay. So any seconder? Senator Bamidele.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, and Michael Bamidele, I rise to second the motion for amendment as moved by distinguished Senator Sani Musa.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the amended prayer 1 as amended, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Prayer 2, call on NEMA, Federal Ministry of Agriculture, and the Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs to immediately arrange for distribution of relief materials and agricultural inputs respectively, so the communities affected can get some relief and resume immediate cultivation to rest, to take advantage of the rainy season to recoup their losses. Those who have this prayer say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the 9th order of the day is a motion standing in the name of distinguished Senator Anao Rochas Okorocha on the urgent need for the government intervention to curb the menace of erosion in communities in Imo West Senatorial Zone
Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Anayo Roches Okorocha to move the motion.
Senator Roches Okorocha.
Mr. Senate President, distinguished colleagues, my name is Owele Anayo Roches Okorocha. Mr. President, my motion is a plea for an urgent need for government intervention to curb the menace of erosion in communities in Imo West, senatorial zone of Imo State. The Senate knows that Imo West senatorial zone consists of 12 local government areas, namely Idato North, Idato South, Isu, Njaba, Nwangele, Nkwere, Oguta, Ohajegbema, Olu, Osu, Oru East, and Oru West. Further note that recently in Idato South and Olu LGA, some villages and communities which include Omomoisiako, Oboko, Amanato, Umuoshi, Umuchima, Obiohia, have been ravaged by erosion caused by the current torrential rainfall in the areas, resulting in economic losses, loss of properties, and damage to roads. Aware that the issue of erosion has been an ongoing menace in this area and its environs for over 5 decades. Further aware that in 2010, a World Bank-assisted project, the Nigeria Erosion and Watershed Management Project, NUMA, was set up in order to help curb erosion and land degradation-related issues across the country, which commenced operation in 2013. Cognizant that in 2019, the Imo State Management Unit of the Nigeria Erosion Watershed Management Project, Imo NUMAP, awarded a contract for the construction and the mediation work at Ezialobis, Iuzo Ogberu, Umueshi, Umunumu, Ibaf, Ogoli erosion sites in Imo State. Further cognizant that in 2014 and 2016, respectively, the Imo State Erosion and Watershed Management Project, Imo NUMAP, assisted with erosion management, gully rehabilitation, compensation for loss of properties, and resettlement of persons that lost their houses due to Umuoshi erosion. Worried that although the federal and state government have assisted in the past in curbing the menace, it keeps reoccurring every year, especially during the rainy season, thereby causing the inhabitants of these areas continued loss of properties and means of livelihood due to damage done to farmlands. Further worried that some of the areas affected by erosion are major federal government link roads, such as Ower Olu, Idato, Oga Federal Road in Imo State that links the Owerri, the capital of Imo State, through Oga to Oka, the capital of Anambra State, and the stretch of road from Olu, Mbe, Umuchima, Obiohia, Uruala, which has partly collapsed with huge gullies. Cognizant that one of the most important responsibilities of government is to protect lives and properties of citizens. Further causes that although the government has assisted in the past in addressing menace caused by erosion in some part of Imo West Senatorial Zone, currently affected such as Umuoshi community. However, many areas have not benefited from the federal government erosion management and rehabilitation aid, while assisted areas keep experiencing annual despair, and regrets that if no urgent action is taken to curb this menace and curb the raging effect of erosion in these communities, this may lead to loss of lives and even more devastating economic consequences for the people of that affected communities in Imo State. Accordingly resolved, Mr. President, to direct the communities on environment, finance, national planning, and economic affairs, water resources and works to jointly interface with the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, Nigeria Erosion and Watershed Management Project, NUMAP, Ministry of Water Resources, Ministry of Works, Federal Road Maintenance Agency, FEMA, and other relevant stakeholders. A, determine why previous federal government intervention have failed to yield lasting solution to this menace. B, provide a permanent and sustainable solution to the menace and report to the Senate within 2 weeks. 2, direct Nigerian Erosion and Watershed Management Project, NUMA, to include these areas affected by erosion in Imo West Senatorial Zone in their 2020 work plan and issue such further directive as deemed expedient in the circumstances to ensure compliance this resolution. I so submit, Mr. President.
I need a seconder. Senator Brown Hadeja.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Ibrahim Hassan Hadeja, Jigawa North, please. I rise to second the motion ably moved by distinguished Senator Rocha Sokorocha. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, let's go to the prayers. Accordingly, the Senate resolves to direct the Committees on Environment, Finance, National Planning and Economic Affairs, Water Resources and Works to jointly interface with the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, Nigerian Erosion and Watershed Management Project, NUMAP, Ministry of Water Resources, Ministry of Works, Federal Road Maintenance Agency, FEMA, and other relevant stakeholders to aid determine why previous federal government interventions have failed to yield a lasting solution to these menace, and B, provide a permanent and sustainable solution to the menace and report to the Senate within 2 weeks. Those in favor of prayer 1 say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it. And prayer 2, direct Nigeria Erosion and Watershed Management Project, NEMAP, to include these areas affected by erosion in Imo West Senatorial Zone in their 2020 work plan and issue such further directives as deemed expedient in the circumstance to ensure compliance with these resolutions. Those in favor of prayer 2 say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it. Thank you very much, distinguished colleagues. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, having concluded today's proceedings on the order paper, I rise to move the motion for this distinguished Senate to adjourn till Wednesday, 15 July 2020 at 10 a.m. prompt. I so move.
Minority Leader.
Mr. President, I second the motion that this Senate adjourns to tomorrow, 15th of July, for another session. Thank you.
Distinguished colleagues, before I put the question, I have an announcement here given to me by the Chairman of the Senate Committee on Police Affairs, but that is about the composition of the conference committee on the police bill. The Senate and the House have passed the two bills, but there are some discrepancies between the two, and we need to have harmonization. So the House will also set up the same membership for the conference committee, and the Senate has Senator Halluru Dauda Jika as chairman, our chairman of Police Affairs, Senator Ike Ikwaramadu, member, Senator Emmanuel Bacha, member, Senator Bella Mandia, member, Senator Ayo Akinya Lure, member, Senator Sandy Ono, member, and Senator Hezekiah Dimka, member. They are to engage with their colleagues from the House of Representatives for the harmonization. For this, I want to put the question, those in favor of the motion by the leader and seconded by the minority leader, that the Senate do adjourn till tomorrow, the 15th day of July 2020 at 10 a.m. from say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it. The Senate is hereby adjourned till tomorrow, Tuesday, the 15th day of July 2020 at 10 a.m. prompt.